The Hells Angels are one of the world's largest and most notorious outlaw motorcycle organizations in the world.
Yeah, that was hot, man.
The U.S. government classified them as dangerous because of their stature and contempt for the norms. However, with innumerable pop culture references to this renowned motorcycle gang and movies and television series, the question on everyone's mind has always been, are the Hells Angels criminals, or are they simply just bikers? For decades, the Hells Angels have had a bad reputation as they have been involved in assault, extortion, homicide, and money laundering.
Get in the car, start it, bro.
Despite the club's history and size, even they cannot shield its members from the legal system. Here are 10 Hells Angels members reacting to a life sentence. Number 1. Maurice Boucher. Maurice "Mom" Boucher became Montreal's drug kingpin by violence and intimidation, and he exploited his status as a Hells Angels leader to force other drug traffickers to bow to his will or die. Boucher was an organized crime boss, murderer, drug trafficker, outlaw biker, and former Hells Angels chapter commander in Quebec. He was convicted 2002 of weapons and assault charges, conspiracy to murder, attempted murder, and 2 counts of first-degree murder after ordering the 1997 murder of 2 Quebec prison officers, Pierre Rondeau and Diane Levine, chosen randomly to chill the Quebec justice system. They were random victims whose deaths were intended to intimidate anyone considering testifying against the gang. He was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for at least 25 years. He was held in one of Canada's few maximum security institutions. In the late 1980s, the Cozaspalquet native joined the Hells Angels. He was a prominent player in the Quebec motorcycle conflict, which saw the Hells battle rival gang rock machine for dominance of Quebec's drug market between 1994 and 2002, killing over 160 people. Boucher's violent life continued in prison. During jail visits, he sent messages to his daughter, ordering the assassination of criminal underworld competitors. He became a target. The Hells Angels bosses in the United States were apparently quite angry with how Boucher had brought bad attention to the organization, and a contract was put out for his death in prison. Boucher was diagnosed with cancer in 2015. In July 2022, the sickness, not his criminal adversaries, killed him. Number 2. Joseph Lancia. After negotiating an agreement with prosecutors, Joseph Lancia, the president of the Hells Angels in Rhode Island, changed his plea and was sentenced to 5 years in jail. Lancia, 30 of Smithfield, appeared in Providence Superior Court with nearly a dozen motorcycle club members wearing full-patch jackets for the hearing before Associate Justice Kristen Rogers. Lancia pleaded no pleas to the felony and battery charges and possessing a gun without a license. As part of the bargain, the more serious accusations of firing a firearm while committing a violent crime and invasion with intent to conduct a sling were dropped. Lancia must return to court to give himself in to begin his time at the Cranston Adult Correctional Institutions.
A dramatic raid of the Hells Angels clubhouse in Providence.
It's a story you first saw as breaking last night at 5. Tonight we're learning why state police swarmed the Messer Street building.
In addition to the 5 years in prison, he will be on probation for 10 years. The leading case against Lancia originates from a June 2019 incident in which police say he shot a revolver at a truck driven by Richard Starnino, a prospective motorcycle club member involved in an ongoing disagreement with Lancia. According to investigators, video surveillance shows Lancia shooting at the vehicle as Torino drove by the Hells Angels Providence headquarters on Messer Street. The critical evidence against Lancia was a video from the clubhouse's security system. If Lancia was found guilty on all 9 initial charges, he risked a maximum term of 61 years in jail if proven guilty at trial. Rogers cautioned Lancia that when he returned to court on February 18th, he would be sent to the ACI. If he violates the terms of his release, she will send him to prison for the entire 18-year sentence. Number 3. Emery Martin. Emery Martin, often known as Pitt, is a longtime Hells Angels member. He's a survivor of Quebec's bloody motorcycle war. He was convicted of drug trafficking. Martin has spent over 20 years of his 63 years on Earth in prison. He has been a Hells Angel for about 25 years. Martin had claimed to be a member of the Montreal chapter when he began his drug peddling operation, but he converted to the New Brunswick Nomad branch in November 2016. He was convicted in October 2021 for being a senior executive in a big interprovincial narcotics operation. He was one of several people detained in 2018 as part of Project J Thunderstruck, an RCMP-led investigation investigating high-volume bulk trafficking from Quebec into New Brunswick. According to the court, there would have been no illegal substances to sell if Martin had not been present. The judge said in her judgment that his standing as an NB Hells Angels Nomad member gave him the authority to direct trafficking in the territory he controlled. Without Mr. Martin's approval, the network would not have been able to operate in its region. Martin was due for a 4-month trial after extensive pre-trial hearings, which he avoided by striking a plea deal. Martin consented to enter a guilty plea to 2 of his 5 accusations: conspiracy to traffic and committing a felony for the benefit of a criminal organization. He acted as a go-between for a Quebec supplier of uncut narcotics and a group of New Brunswick traffickers commanded by Marcel Friolet. He gave Friolet and his colleagues permission to sell in the area of northeastern New Brunswick in exchange for a tax on everything they sold. Martin didn't have to put forth much effort to get his money. He bestowed his blessings and introduced the buyers to the sellers. He also handled different delivery-related issues. They all used encrypted phones to converse. Between May 2016 and July 2017, the organization transported 96 kilos of illegal narcotics. Martin was sentenced to 8 years in jail, but owing to an assault incident in prison, LeBlanc reduced Martin's sentence by 6 months. Number 4. Adam Lee Hall. Adam Lee Hall of Peru and David Chaloux, a former Springfield resident, and Hells Angel Club member Caius Veiovis, were convicted of murdering 3 Pittsfield citizens. The victims included 44-year-old David Glasser, 58-year-old Edward Frampton, and 47-year-old Robert Chadwell. The 3 victims' bodies were buried in a trench near Beckett around 10 days after they went missing in August 2011. All 3 had been assaulted several times with a handgun and a sharp weapon before being dismembered and buried in plastic bags.
Breaking news from Springfield right now, where the jury in the Adam Lee Hall trial has come back into the courtroom. Remember, we broke in.
David Glasser was set to testify in 2 felony proceedings against Hall, who was described as a sergeant and arms with the local Hells Angels motorcycle organization. According to the prosecution, Hall enlisted the cooperation of Veiovis and Chaloux to abduct and kill Glasser in order to prevent him from testifying against him. Frampton, Glasser's roommate, and Chadwell were killed because they witnessed Glasser's abduction. Hall, Veiovis, and Chaloux were all tried individually. Because of the publicity generated by the details of this case, the trials were moved from Pittsfield to Hampton Superior Court in Springfield. After 3 weeks of hearing, a jury in Hampton Superior Court convicted Hall of all 3 deaths and 12 additional felonies in 2014. They deliberated for 17 hours before finding him guilty. Superior Court Judge C. Jeffrey Kinder sentenced Adam Lee Hall to 3 consecutive life sentences. Kinder stated before sentencing that the case demonstrated depravity and contempt for human decency well beyond his expertise. Kinder also issued 2 additional sentences following the life sentences, 12 to 15 years for armed robbery and 8 to 10 years for kidnapping. He further said that, besides preying on the crippled, Hall surrounded himself with young ladies whom he could manipulate and direct into criminal conduct for his gain. Throughout the proceedings, Hall displayed little emotion and appeared unconcerned. Number 5. Brian Shane Henson. Brian Shane Henson, 40, of Merced, was sentenced by U.S. District Judge Jesus G. Bernal on Monday. According to court filings, Henson arranged a contract to sell 1 pound of methamphetamine and 4 ounces of marijuana in exchange for 20 stolen firearms in early 2017, when he was a potential member of the Merced chapter of the Hells Angels motorcycle organization. Henson had negotiated the trade with an undercover agent from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, unbeknownst to him. After discussing the arrangement for nearly a week, Henson and co-defendant Hussein Fawaz Eltereb, a full-patch Hells Angels member, traveled approximately 7 hours from Merced to Needles, California, to meet the undercover agent on January 25, 2017. According to prosecutors, Henson delivered the secret agent 1 pound of methamphetamine and 1/4 pound of marijuana after arriving in Needles. Henson took control of the 20 weapons, which he placed in the trunk of Eltereb's automobile. Law enforcement authorities apprehended Henson and Eltereb immediately following the exchange. Officers discovered a load. A .38 caliber pistol is currently stashed close to the driver's seat in Eltereb's vehicle. Henson pled guilty in October to the distribution of methamphetamine and possession of guns in furtherance of a narcotics trafficking felony and was sentenced to 180 months in federal custody, the statutory minimum sentence. Judge Bernal found Eltereb, 27, of Merced, guilty of conspiracy to sell methamphetamine, distribution of methamphetamine, and possession of a pistol in furtherance of a narcotics trafficking felony during a bench trial in December. Eltereb is expected to be sentenced by Judge Bernal on May 21st, and he too will face a mandatory minimum sentence of 180 months in federal prison. Number 6. David Giles. David Giles was also a Hells Angel for a long period. In 2017, he was condemned to a whopping 18 years in jail. This was one of the heaviest sentences ever given to BC members of the notorious biker gang, whose members are frequently discovered participating in criminal acts. He was found guilty of leading a conspiracy to smuggle 1/2 ton of an illicit drug. Giles was 66 years old and in poor health almost 5 years before his trial. He strained to breathe in the prisoner's box as the BC Supreme Court Justice read her reasons for sentencing him to 18 years in jail. She also gave Giles over 7 years credit for his time in pre-trial custody, meaning he had to serve 11 years and 1 month. Giles had already been convicted of conspiracy to import an unlawful substance and conspiracy to traffic for trafficking after he and his friend Kevin Van Kalkeren arranged a smuggling agreement with police acting as South American suppliers in 2012. Van Kalkeren also pled guilty on the day of his trial and was sentenced to 16 years. It had taken months of discussions for the police to capture Giles and Van Kalkeren with a $4 million down payment and 200 kilograms of narcotics delivered to a Burnaby warehouse. 6 more people were arrested alongside them. Giles's attorney, Paul Gill, asked for a shorter sentence because his client was extremely ill with liver disease and required a transplant as soon as possible. Number 7. Zane Power Wallace. Wallace is a Hells Angel prospect who murdered a mother of 2 in a violent attack. In August of this year, Jasmine Tamara Wilson, age 30, died in Wellington Hospital. Someone dropped her outside the Wanganui Hospital Emergency Department, leaving her unconscious and seriously damaged. Wallace's father had discovered Jasmine's body a few days earlier after Wallace had phoned him for assistance. His father, Steve, his mother, Leanne, and his sister, Stevie Lee Wallace, were all convicted and imprisoned for obstructing justice. He had been charged with several crimes. Jasmine's relatives and friends said they were all guilty of her murder because she had been exposed to violence by her then-partner, Jang, for months. Zane was sentenced to life with a minimum term of 15 years to 6 months for murdering Jasmine. Zane agreed to numerous more crimes, including making death threats to the victim's family and attacking others. Sergeant Neil Forlong, a police senior, told a news site that Jasmine's injuries were among the worst he had ever seen. Wallace pleaded guilty before his retrial because his first trial finished in May 2021, when medical evidence was updated earlier. He acknowledged repeatedly assaulting Wilson in the wagon and Hells Angels clubhouse in May 2019. Wilson and Wallace's family battled in the courtroom gallery as he was led to the cells. While the police officers tried to keep the 2 families apart, Jasmine's family members continued to yell at Wallace to burn in hell. Wallace had a long history of violence, having been convicted of abusing other partners as recently as 2014. He had routinely beaten Jasmine in the 9 months preceding her death. The fatal episode began with an argument between the two, after which he hit her, but she was still alive. The next day, though, he attacked her again, and this time she died. Number 8. Stephen Sanders. On Friday, Stephen Sanders, age 44, was sentenced to 25 years in state prison by District Attorney Bonnie Dumanis. Sanders, the former head of the Hells Angels San Diego chapter, admits to kidnapping 2 people for the benefit of a criminal street gang. The DA's office has recently prosecuted multiple cases involving Sanders, including a July 2012 conviction for robbery and violence. Sanders was convicted of solicitation to murder in March 2012. Prosecutors allege that he attempted to assassinate witnesses and investigators concerning a pending kidnapping and torture case against him. In April, he pled guilty to assault with a deadly weapon charges from a violent attack on partygoers in Pacific Beach. Sanders pled guilty in June to felony kidnapping and committing offenses to help a violent street gang. Sanders addressed the court at his sentencing on Thursday, saying he felt forced to make a guilty plea because he anticipated a severe term if convicted at trial. Number 9. Jonathan Nelson. On accusations of murder in aid of racketeering, a federal court convicted 2 members of the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club in Sonoma County and a 3rd angel from Fresno. A judge found Jonathan Nelson, a.k.a. John, 46, of Santa Rosa, Russell Taylor Ott, 69, of Santa Rosa, and Brian Wayne Went, 45, of Tulare, guilty of murdering one of their members and conspiring to murder on Wednesday, according to the Department of Justice. Nelson, according to federal prosecutors, planned Silva's murder with Ott. On July 15, 2014, Ott drove Silva to Fresno under the guise of wanting to fight with the Fresno chapter's president, Went, to resolve his issues with the organization. Went shot Silva in the head as soon as he arrived. Silva's body was cremated the next day at a nearby crematorium. Other details concerning the Hells Angels Club in Sonoma were revealed throughout the trial. There was a pattern of intimidating anyone who approached the police about the motorcycle gang's actions, according to witnesses. Those who would testify or serve as witnesses and their families were warned that they would be harmed. According to the DOJ, all 3 defendants face a mandatory life term in prison. Number 10. Christian Rufino. Brewster's Hells Angel Motorcycle Club has accepted Christian A. Rufino as a member. Cranston police arrested him as a felon in possession of a handgun. Rufino, age 42 at the time, pleaded guilty to 1 count of felon in possession of a handgun in August 2011. Following a traffic check in December 2009 by a Cranston police officer who discovered Rufino was high when he searched Rufino's vehicle. He found a loaded handgun and a little bag containing an illicit substance in his car. Rufino had previously been convicted of assault and battery with a deadly weapon in 1995, armed robbery with intent to kill in New Bedford in 1998, and bank robbery by force, violence, and intimidation in Maine in 1990. According to the Justice Department, his case was probed by Cranston police and officers assigned to the FBI's Safe Street Task Group. During the sentencing hearing, U.S. District Court Judge John J. McConnell condemned Rufino as an armed career criminal prosecutor who admitted to being a member of the Hells Angels chapter in New York. Rufino received a 15-year sentence for breaking a provision prohibiting felons from possessing firearms. Prosecutors also testified that Rufino was initially pulled up for speeding on Route 95 due to his flagrant disregard for the regulations. Rufino was arrested again, this time for a significantly more extended period. Share your ideas about these dangerous and crazy bikers in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe for more shocking content.